My faith life was sort of a complex and nonlinear process before I became a Catholic. I was not raised in a thoroughly Christian home. We read the New Testament. My mother made me read the New Testament. I'm grateful for that. As a teenager, I began attending a southern type of a Baptist church very faithfully. And there I learned that I needed God and was very committed to serving the Lord. I gave my life to Protestant ministry, to becoming a Baptist minister. I went to a Baptist seminary, but because I think there were certain things that my Baptist brothers and sisters, whom I still love to this day, maybe misunderstood about history or had theologically just slightly off views, those things actually caused me to doubt, and I sort of questioned. I sort of had to back up. How do I know that the faith is true at all? And so I took some time to study theology and apologetics. But in that journey, something very unexpected happened. When I thought I could be more faithful to Baptist ministry through that process, I actually began to realize slowly and against my will that the great apologists from history were not Baptists. And when I read the St. Anselm and the church fathers and the great thinkers of the Christian faith who defended the faith and showed the reasonableness of the faith, I noticed the theme that they were all Catholic. And that was the beginning of the end of my Baptist life. I read very widely outside of my seminary reading. The seminary that I went to was a Baptist seminary. Eventually I went to a school that's now Houston Christian University, and my professors did encourage me to read definitely some Catholics or some of the church fathers, but really because I had questioned, I just wanted to make sure that I could know the faith was true. And I was reading Nietzsche and Freud and everything. I was reading Taoism and just trying to make sure I understood the broader picture. But in that, when I really understood the reasonableness of the faith and then the coherence of that with the early church, it was a professor who converted to Catholicism while I was in grad school. I think I started emailing her some questions, and she had me read the church fathers. But no, in my undergrad, they would not have had me read the church fathers, if they even knew who they were. Because I grew up in the Deep South, and I still love those Baptist folks to this day, and they love the Lord, but because there's a certain culture there, they have certain misconceptions about Catholicism, as you can imagine. So what we knew about Catholics were all the bad Catholics that we met who were culturally Catholic, who didn't live a Christian life, and we assumed that was all Catholics. And of course, we had the typical Protestant objections. They don't read the Bible, they're idol worshipers and these things. But I had some sense of, they believe that the Eucharist is really the body and blood of Christ, which was foreign to me. But because when I was studying apologetics, there was a resonance of historic Christianity and this sacramental worldview that had really, I think, formed Europe after the fall of Rome and really had informed so many of the things that I loved and believed in as human dignity, moral worth, human rights. Those things grew out of a Catholic worldview that was pre-Reformation. And those things, I think, really set my mind to being open to sacramentalism. So when I read the Church Fathers, here's Ignatius and Justin Martyr and the earliest writings we have, I immediately recognized a bit too, it was a bit disconcerting to me to realize just extremely how Catholic they are, because I did think that views like transubstantiation would have been a medieval accretion, but here they are in the first, second century, and that was, I immediately recognized it, and it was disconcerting. It was a slow process between seeing the shortcomings in what I believed and had taught as a Baptist minister, and my Baptist mentors had passed me, and I do think that they did the best with what they knew. This is what they were taught. We didn't read, as Baptists, we didn't read much before the 1800s as far as historical theology. Definitely not before Jonathan Edwards, So I realized there was shortcomings, so I was open to being other forms of Christianity in my private life. As I said, though, I did doubt the faith in general at some point. I was wondering, okay, if these Baptists were wrong about X, Y, and Z, and they're just so wrong about this can't be true historically. What else were they wrong about? Well, that caused me to read so widely, so that I was already open to not being a Baptist in my private life, whether it would be non-denominational or Presbyterian or Lutheran or Anglican, I wasn't sure. But I did know from studying a lot of history, reading volumes by historians like Michael Licona and all these guys, I did become convinced that the evidence for the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth was sound. I had no reason to doubt the existence, death, and resurrection of Christ because of the evidence. In fact, I think the evidence supports those things. So I decided that if he is Lord, if he was crucified, if he was buried and he rose again, he's Lord. I wanted to know, okay, well, if he's Lord and I'm going to stay a Christian, what is Christianity? If he started a church, which he did, what is that church? And so at that point, I did become open. I had a lot of conversations with some Catholics. If I told you the name of these maybe YouTube celebrities you might know, I message them, hey, what do you think about this? I'm just kind of seeing this thing from 1,000 miles away and coming in slow. But I did have a professor I emailed quite a bit, and a couple of them, and they were very kind to email me back. So it was a slow process for me, and I had to make sure, because I had to turn in my ordination, my wife had to leave her job. We didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Our social circle was going to be rocked. So I was pretty slow about the process. I sort of had to be sure. But at some point, I was greeting at a Baptist church. I'm no longer in full-time ministry, but I'm ministering part-time. And that Sunday, I was just opening doors for people and just welcoming them in. And I had already planned, I'm going to go see a mass. I need to just see what it's like. And so I got done with my shift greeting people at the Baptist church. I got in my car and I went to a Catholic mass. And I think that was probably the first, seeing it not in a book, but just sort of experiencing it and seeing it. And that was probably the first step. That was the beginning of the end for me. My wife and I, we went to a couple of masses together. And I had to go slowly because I had read sort of this way ahead of her. She's still busy in Baptist ministry. I'm less so at this point, but I did have to take our time. But eventually, after going to a couple masses, and we'd had lots of talks for a long time, and watched videos by Bishop Barron and all these folks, that really helped her. Eventually, we wanted to just kind of sneak away quietly from our Baptist church. But unfortunately, because of we were fairly visible, the word was getting out. The rumors were spreading before I announced it. So I made an announcement online and just called and messaged some people. Had some difficult conversations with some folks. And I called a priest. In fact, it was the priest. I told him later I'd been watching his live stream on YouTube at work. I'd be at work doing just, mindless paperwork, and I'd have his mass, listen to his homily, and the liturgy was so reverent. And that was the parish I snuck away to visit. And I emailed him and said, you don't know me? I could use some help. All I know is I need to become a Catholic. And just let me know what I need to do. And so he very kindly responded. And he took his own time to meet with me and my wife. And I will never forget that. For all the people who were sort of giving us some negative feedback, this man was kind and charitable enough to take his own time after his work shift to meet with my wife and I and walk us through the process of RCIA and getting us into the church. And we didn't come in during Easter Vigil because we didn't do this the proper way. We didn't decide to join at the right time, so we were a little late for Easter Vigil. But thankfully, due to the grace of God and the kindness of our priest, we came in at Pentecost last year. It was wonderful when we were received. Of course, if you are a Protestant, you know that many friends and family won't understand for understandable reasons. I mean, how could they understand if they haven't read the things you've read or thought through it the way you have? So with grace to those folks, it is a little bit lonely. But I will say that the charity and kindness of Catholic people who understood, somehow they understood, these are Baptist people coming in. We had people from other parishes coming to see my wife and just support her. And I'll never forget that. I mean, they don't know us, and they're just being charitable to us. That meant a lot to us. But my children came a long way. So we have 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl. They've actually been more involved in the faith, to my surprise. I'm more passionate about it, more excited about the scriptures even, since discussing Catholicism in the home thoroughly and listening to Bishop Barron and these guys. So the excitement on their face when they were finally baptized and confirmed, I think it meant I was so excited to take Mass, and I think I was even more excited to do that with my children and my wife by my side. That was a big day for us.